Christopher John Joseph here in Melbourne, Australia. I've been fighting a deadly neurotoxic / fungal yeast infection. Having a career in gardening and horticulture, I've been overexposed to plants with fungal diseases and trees with fungal diseases and compost and potting mixes. And after a career of many years in that, I have contracted a very deadly fungal infection, and it appears certainly yeast is involved, probably Geotrichum, Rhodotorula, but also possibly even a wood fungi or even mycorrhizal. Now I'm going to go straight into this very important sort of discovery I've had to make. The specialists here in Melbourne have abandoned me to die, untreated. My GP gave me all the oral medications he could, antifungals, and voriconazole, the first one he ever gave me about 6 or 7 years ago now, that was the one that nearly cleared it, but ran out of legs. It couldn't do it in the end, and then it stopped working. Then we tried itraconazole, posaconazole, etc. He said you need intravenous antifungal. It's a serious matter. It could be in your spinal fluid from all the symptoms like meningitis now. So quite deadly. I've nearly died hundreds of times already, and it's paralysing the body and the brain. But I continue treating myself naturally, and about nearly 11 months ago now, already aware that yeast was involved, and the research I'd already done, I'd already sat out in cold winter nights just in shorts, breathing in cold air, and I knew it would help break up the biofilm, which it did, and then you get a poison spike. So I've carried that over now. I used a friend's fruit shop, their freezer, which was minus 18 degrees. I'd be in that for about 60 minutes for 1 or 2 hours a day, and they helped save my life. Each day I was able to use it. Then I had to buy a unit for myself at home to use it more, and now I've got the unit installed here at home. It's a minus 15 to minus 19 degrees freezer. It's cyclic. It simply runs in a cycle, rising to minus 15, then the refrigeration unit cuts in, drops to 19. So this is keeping me alive, and it is helping to break up the biofilm when I'm in there. And currently, after taking care of all my earthly affairs, my will and all the rest of it, I'm now really starting to hammer this deadly infection, which we know is fungal, and we know yeast is involved, and we know it's systemic. All the microscopy work I have, because of my career, I was taught to use a microscope at a horticultural college 40 years ago. So of course I've used it in my own work and studying insects and fungal diseases of plants. So overexposed to fungi diseased plants and trees, potting mixes, compost, I've contracted something. The medical profession in Melbourne are very poor at fungal yeast problems. In fact, they don't even acknowledge yeast, systemic yeast problems in Melbourne. Pathology labs refuse to report yeast in the sputum. And the universities I've been to, that's 4 different universities, I was driven to go to them for help. And they were really wonderful, 1,000 times more supportive than the 19 of the 20 specialists I saw. And only one specialist, Piers Canty at the Epworth Hospital here in Melbourne, he treated me extremely decently with great respect, got me in immediately for a bronchoscopy, and the pathology lab report from Melbourne Pathology said there's no mycology in the lung. It was only later on that I found out that they refused to report yeasts. So you can die here in Australia from a systemic yeast infection, and it will never be reported, and you'll never be treated. So bless Piers Canty, as I say, he was better than the other 19 specialists I've seen, and some of them claim to be the top fungal experts in Melbourne. So this cryotherapy I'm about to show you is keeping me alive, and now that I'm increasing it to 3 hours a day, 45-minute sessions by 4, and I need to increase that again now because it's still basically like meningitis now in the brain. I'll now just show you, just so you understand this is a legitimate case. That's what I was coughing up after my GP back in 2019 gave me voriconazole, so to loosen up the infection, and that's what was coming up. Now I'm just going to, that's my email, jcinfocus@gmail.com. I'll just quickly go through these, and you can certainly stop on them and read them when you have time. Just pause the video. It's generally a summary of what I've been through. All my life savings went down the toilet thanks to the medical profession here in Melbourne, about $200,000. I had to keep spending and doing my own research and use other companies, private companies that weren't funded through the healthcare system. A professor came to my home because the specialists were accusing me of contaminating all the slides, and I have about 10,000 images of the infection over 7 years. And I have a selection of those on a long video which will be attached to this shorter video. So a professor came here, examined the way I prepare the slides, and he said it's absolutely what he teaches. It's a perfect sort of way to teach uncontaminated. A GP, another wonderful GP, also came here to give me a letter. I had to keep doing all these things and then take them to the next specialist and then get more documents, more evidence, more support. All these were thrown in the rubbish bin by 19 of the 20 specialists. The 2 other specialists did bronchoscopies. One again found nothing. The third one, it was Sydney. The Sydney Westmead Hospital discovered 3 fungi. So I advise anyone in Melbourne, Australia, if you've got a serious yeast fungal infection, do not send them to any local pathology labs. Send them to the Westmead Hospital in Sydney. Now, that's a letter from my GP, Andrew Monk, who's known me for 40 years, for a specialist to read as to what he'd already treated me with, and that I am a patient that is that can be trusted in the symptoms I describe and what's happening to me. And the specialist I gave that to, throw it in the rubbish bin. When I asked them, why don't you ring my GP, they would simply say, I don't need to do that, I'm a specialist. I had no idea this was going on. These are the reports that actually ended up over 7 years of sputum and skin samples and urine samples that came up with fungi. So I'll just quickly move through these so that you can see this is a legitimate case. It is deadly, it is highly neurotoxic to my brain and the body, and it is agonizing. This is a wonderful university, one of the 6 people that I liaised with at 4 different universities here in Melbourne who were wonderful help to me, who cultured 2 different penicillium, which have also been cultured by the labs, and myself at home, because I had 2 incubators running, because dimorphic fungi, you need 2 different temperatures to identify them. I do have a good knowledge of fungi and disease, but for plants. So it was a steep learning curve to start doing pathology on my own body, but because I'm familiar with fungi, it wasn't too difficult, but it was a learning curve. At the university, they grew a white filamentous mold, but unidentified. Well, another private lab that did PCR DNA for me that I had to pay for, Geotrichopsis, and Geotrichum is definitely involved. You can see it in the microscopy work I've done. Again, more reports just to show the first one this independent lab did for me. They came up with Leptosphaeria maculans, which I have been around plants that have been killed by that disease, and I've ripped them out. So that is a possibility. It may have mutated. So they said it may not be absolutely this one, however, you've definitely got it in your blood. And I said, I know, I can feel it. So they're the reports. You can just pause on them if you wish, just to verify that these are legitimate reports. There's urine samples, sputum, and these are samples I had to send to the United States because things are so bad in Melbourne for for yeast and mold infections, fungal infections. It's really poor quality care here in Melbourne, and the people here don't really know that much about all the different possible pathology, fungi and yeasts. These are the medications list, so that's there to have a look at. These are the natural medicines I've had to investigate and research. I've got a lot of interest in essential oils. I was hoping to farm some, but I can't get out of Melbourne at the moment. I'm too ill. But there's a list of the natural medicines I'm taking, and some of the other things I'm doing. A strict antifungal diet, no sugar, etc. So all those things I've covered. There's a list of the symptoms. You can read that at your leisure. Just pause it, but it summarises it. And essentially, it's a life and death battle now for me every day, and it's essentially like meningitis. Let's summarise it. Now, this is what I was coughing up after the first voriconazole antifungal tablet my GP gave to me. We had to wait 6 months before one of the labs identified possibly Aspergillus fumigatus. It's not that, but they at least identified something. So then he could give me something. This is all the system. He's known me for 40 years. He knew I was seriously ill. He knew my career. He knew it was probably fungal, but he couldn't treat me until the lab provided something, which were in Melbourne. I learned as the years went by they're really very poor. So that's what we're coughing up, and this is in fact what really came up then after 3 months of voriconazole. The dose was very low at the beginning, 100 milligrams, but once we put it up to 600, this really started to loosen up. The big problem I've got, and you'll see it in the microscopy work on the long video, which I'll attach to this video, is that this is the Arthrochondridia hypha chains of a Geotrichum infection in the body, in the system, in the lungs, and they've got no idea here in Melbourne what that is. It took me a while to identify it myself and put the pieces of the puzzle together, but you'll see them in the images. This is a collection of the hypha that is broken up. One of the top immunologists at one of our major hospitals here in Melbourne, who was also a microbiologist who I went to see in the hope that he would help me since the others weren't. He looked at this and he said, I don't know what that is, I've never seen anything like that before. I'll take it to the head mycologist at the hospital in the pathology lab, the head mycologist, the head mycology expert. That person looked at it, I won't mention their names, I will protect them even though they've left me to die. He looked at that and he said, I've never seen anything like that before. It looks like some sort of vegetative thing. Now I'm from a horticultural gardening background. I know they look like yeast. Even I know that. But they are unusual looking. That's also, I already knew that. But they were experts and they couldn't even say they look like yeast. They didn't even know what these look like. I understand now what's gone wrong. They're looking at the Arthrochonidia chains all mixed up. And if we just go forward here quickly before I get in the freezer, I do mainly want to concentrate on getting in the freezer for you, but I do need to establish that this is a legitimate case and just explain to you what's gone wrong. This is a web photo of Geotrichum. Oh, there we are. That's Geotrichum. Now I've grown that at home and I've cultured it. But I had to start doing my own culture. I had to start spending a lot of money on my own work. You can see the odd shapes on the bottom right there. There's another web photo, Geotrichum. Again, look at the odd shapes. Some of them almost like boomerangs and such things, and odd, small, round, elongated. Now, that's my sputum from an agar plate. Again, look at the odd shapes. Look at the collection. They're not in hypha here. These are the Arthrochonidia links that are broken apart from the agar sample. Here you can see they're almost forming a little bit of a hypha, again from agar. And look at this. This is a classic photo of what they don't understand. Here, from the agar plate, from growing from my sputum, you can see the young hypha forming. Then you can see them actually forming the Arthrochonidia links and chains. Then they're breaking apart. And they're all very different sizes. And that's what they don't understand. That's what it is. Absolutely through the lungs and the body, and there are other things involved. And they don't know what that is, but I do. And there's the sputum sample, and have a look at what's in that sputum sample. Now I've given them sample after sample after sample. Also notice the air bubbles, the gas bubbles, yeast. What does yeast produce? Bubbles. The labs refuse to report yeast. You can have an ocean of yeast in your lung here in Melbourne, Australia and die, and they'll never report it, and your death will never be recorded as a systemic yeast death. So I'm going to contact the government about this and the medical authorities. There's serious problems in the medical profession. 2 GPs were threatened for helping me too much, but that's another matter. Here we can see the variation of the Arthrochonidia chains. It's quite interesting. There's a sputum sample I've cultured at home, and there it is. The links, the chains, the hypha, not fully formed, more formed into segments, more formed into segments, breaking apart. And you can see on the left, you can see the elongated form that's almost already bending, like a bit of spaghetti, smaller ones, rounder ones, elongated, different shapes, different sizes, Geotrichum Arthrochonidia. There's one from the web again, it's the same thing. There's one again from agar, from sputum. On the right, you can see 2021, that image from the lung. And on the left, 2022, is the same thing. It's still there. It's still there. It's still neurotoxic. I'm only just hanging on. Again, same thing. You can see the chains and the different shapes and different sizes. So, and now that is a wet mount, and I only use wet mounts. I started staining initially, but I stopped. It's much better to do wet mounts, uniform, thousands of images, and it's much easier to then identify it. And you actually get quite a good detail. So these, and of course they won't do wet mounts. They only stain. And they don't know what they're looking at here in Melbourne. They're just not educated enough. Australia's a small population. So that's what I'm coughing up, oceans of that. And of course, it's deadly. So that's there, and I just want to quickly, I won't read this at all. This is just simply a summary, and you can stop the video and have a look at that if you wish. It just basically summarises what I've been through. what's happened. Again, just pause it to read it if you wish. I'm not going to read it. There's the medications, the natural, that are helping keep me alive. These are helping prevent me to die from the neurotoxic fungal yeast infection, and horopedo, undiosulfonic acid. A number of these in combination, they do hit the infection when I take them, but the infection's very deeply entrenched, and of course I should be getting medical help, but I've been left, abandoned, ridiculed, mocked, laughed at, and sent broke. So that's there. You can pause that and just have a quick look at it if you wish. Now this is the freezer cryotherapy treatment, basically describing what I'm doing in the freezer. That's the Mesa freezer, which runs at -15 to -19, which I'll be getting into in a minute to show you. And outside the freezer I have a sort of just little plastic Tupperware, a pipe coming out that I drilled through a fan, and in here on the wood and tissue paper I put essential oils. I know quite a lot about essential oils. I've done a lot of testing on agar plates of the effectiveness of essential oils to kill the yeast, etc. You've got to be careful which ones you use. I'm not going to mention them here on the video because some of them can burn the lung. You need to talk to a naturopath about that. Or I can provide some personal details over the internet if you contact me with your email. So this fan goes on after I've been in the freezer, and then what I do is I go to the computer, which is in the room next door, and I've got pipes running through from the freezer where I put on a mask, and the cold air from the freezer comes through into the mask, and I breathe that in perhaps for 2 or 3 hours and then get back in the freezer while I'm working on the computer researching. So that is also here on this video. And so now what I'll do is I will show you the cryotherapy treatment. I won't waste any more time. Now I'm going to show you, first of all, I'm in there for 45 minutes, so you have to rug up. So I've got a t-shirt, a shirt, another thick sort of coat here as well, and along with the coat I put on a woolen dressing gown, cotton dressing gown as well. I've also got long johns on, and then a pair of trousers or tracksuit pants, and then Ugg boots, woolen Ugg boots. Also, you must put on a mask over your nose because the fan in that cryotherapy chamber, I'll call it, medical room I call it, my medical room, because it is preventing me from dying. Now this is just a fact. Now this can save lives in the world. The medical profession here couldn't care less about me and couldn't care less about anything I say. One specialist said to me, when I told him all the symptoms, which were like meningitis, his reply to me was, "Your self-evidence means nothing to me." He was saying, "You mean nothing to me. Pay on the way out. I want more reports." It was disgraceful. So mitten, glove on top of that. The fingers and the toes in the cryotherapy medical room are of course very important to keep warm, and a woolen cap particularly for the ears. So rug up, absolutely. And now I'll take the camera in and I'll show you exactly what I do to stay alive here in Melbourne, Australia, with a very novel and powerful treatment that is actually killing and breaking apart the deadly biofilm mass in my lungs and throughout the body. And if I can just untangle this. What are you doing here, Cancer? Right, there we are. Okay, let's go. I'll show you this treatment now. This is what is preventing me from dying, and it has done so for 10 months. Abandoned and ridiculed by the medical profession in Australia. This is a Mesa refrigeration unit that goes from, in cycle from 15, it'll drop down to 19 now. Then the fan will cut off and it'll sit there for about 10 or 15 minutes, then cut in again. This is the Tupperware box I use, and it's sealed, so you've got it airtight. I have the pipe that I've drilled through into the freezer, a little fan from Amazon. It's just got a little button here for 3 speeds, and then with the oils, I simply put the oils on the either wooden block or the tissue. This is a combination of peppermint and eucalyptus, this one, and then you put the cover on here, of course, so it's airtight. You only want the air flowing through into the piping. Then I place this over just as a bit of insulation, and then that pipe travels up the side here, across the top of the freezer there and through the wall, and then over here it comes out of the wall, down here, down there, and I sit there and I can work on the computer with very cold air, and that helps suppress the growth of the infection. It's not as powerful as being in the freezer, which I'll get in now and show you, but it's the freezer and breathing the deep air in here that actually really knocks the fungal biofilm mass and the infection. As the infection breaks apart in here, I can often stagger against the side of the walls because you get poison spikes. And that's been going on for the last 3 years as I treat it with many different natural things, but it keeps growing back. It's very resilient. But I'm hoping now that I can concentrate on the cryotherapy treatment now, along with the natural medicines, that it will eventually kill the infection and save my life. Left to die in Melbourne, abandoned and ridiculed. So I'm sharing this to save lives in the world. Now, this is the unit here. I'm in the unit, of course, and it's big enough for 2 people. So a patient could be sitting here in a chair, here, and a nurse could be sitting here, and the patient could be sitting or standing here. That is the refrigeration unit up here with the fan that blows the air straight out here, stand here, and I get it straight in the face and in the mouth, and I just breathe it in. I'll leave the mask on just so you can see, but normally the mask goes on the nose because the nose will get very cold. So I'll be breathing in. Just deep breaths, often very slow. I've also tried doing sort of 10 fast breaths or 20 breaths, and sometimes that will hit it and break up the biofilm mass, and I can begin to cough it out. So it's just deep breathing, perhaps holding the breath in, then exhaling. This is a 45-minute process I do now. It was 30, but it's going to be 45 because it's nearly ending my life every day now, the poison levels. And I will now increase the sessions from 4 times 45 minutes. I'm hoping to 5 or 6 times a day. It's definitely beginning to impact it more, and I've just got to just keep trying. But this is a novel, non-toxic, the most natural way you could kill a systemic yeast infection, particularly if it's in the lungs. I don't know about the other fungi, how well it would work for aspergillus or penicilliums or rhizopus. I don't know. But I do know yeast cannot handle the cold. The bodies of the yeast break apart. I've researched this, I've examined it in the fridge. There's no doubt cold air does it. We have to assume, and the microscopy evidence on the other video, which will be on this shorter video, which is a much longer, detailed video with my microscopy work, which the images are really fascinating, and I've got about 10,000, but there's a couple of hundred on the long video. That also includes another session of showing you what to do in the freezer. So it's deep breathing. And then sometimes it'll be a fast number of 10 or 20. This is, I do it of course with this on the nose, to protect the nose, but just so you can see me a bit better. You need to protect the nose, it does get very cold. And then what will happen is this will begin to loosen the biofilm, which is now very viscous, very tough to loosen, and then I might eventually start to drag up some of this biomass neurotoxic fungal yeast infection, and then I cough it into this coffee cup here, and that is an ice block of what I've coughed up in the last 5 months here at home. It's hard to get it up, but I'm slowly coughing up more and more. That's from the lung. It's always full of air bubbles as yeast makes gas, but they don't care, they don't know about it, they couldn't be bothered. So I'm doing all the research and I'm sharing it with you. This is an absolute marvel at what it's doing. My friends in the fruit shop kept me alive for 6 months. They said, come every day, Chris, we're here for you. 19 of the 20 specialists said to me, get lost. So, you know, if you're sick in Melbourne, go to your fruiterer. So that's it there, 45 minutes. I can feel it right at the back of the ribs and the spine, the back of the lungs, radiating out. So I won't stay here any longer, but that's 45 minutes, so I want to get this done as sort of a shorter video, because I know how boring videos can be and lengthy, but this is saving my life at the moment. That is it, the Mesa. It's a brilliant thing. Now, this is the oils which I just showed you before, the fan in the Tupperware box with the essential oils in. And I'll now press the button here. It's just a cheap fan from Amazon. The cold air is now going up out of the freezer through the piping, which has to be metal piping. I use poly pipe at first, but it's not cold enough. So I then changed to copper piping, and of course I've got lots of insulation here. You can see around the coil that I had to use to get it through the wall and bend it down to here. And that of course helps to keep the air very cold. And I have had moments here on the computer where I've been using it for 1 or 2 hours, breathing deeply, and it can in fact induce what I call the toxic spiking, where it is actually breaking the deadly infection down enough for me to go woozy. But I'm absolutely fully aware of it, and I always gauge it now. But I have collapsed on the floor here at home and at my friend's fruit shop, simply from breaking the deadly neurotoxic yeast infection apart in the lungs too quickly. It dumps too much neurotoxins in the bloodstream and you pass out, and it's quite deadly. So yes, you can see me there, good. Okay, so I sit here now, and all I need to do, the air is now coming through here from the freezer, very cold, but it also is infused with essential oils, but ones which are not going to burn the lung. So that requires someone with the knowledge. I have that knowledge, naturopaths have that knowledge, so you've got to be careful. Some essential oils are more powerful than antibiotics and antifungals. The agar plate tests I have done comparing the two clearly show that, but you can't inhale them. They will burn the bronchial lining. So this goes on. This is a dust mask from a hardware store. I had to make a special sort of metal bracket up for it to fit this. I had to find the right size piping, coil piping, but I was able to do it, and I'm a gardener, so anyone could do it. You block off this vent here. You don't want to breathe in any of the room air. You only want to be breathing in the cold air coming from the freezer, and it has an exhaust valve on it as well, of course, for the air to go out. So we put that on, and then I can sit here literally for hours before I get in the freezer again. I'll have some more natural tablets with some food, and while I'm researching things I'm interested in, and this will suppress the growth of the fungus, but it's not strong enough to do deep breathing, which will then break it apart, and the poison spikes occur, which is always a sign when the poison spikes occur that you are killing it. You are dismantling it. It has to be gauged in any hospital setting or clinic setting. Of course, you'd have to have a nurse sitting in there with the patient. I don't have that privilege because I am alone in Melbourne and I've been abandoned. But that's fine. They've driven me to find a way that I can share with the world that is non-toxic, extremely deadly to yeast at the very least, and I don't know about other fungi for certain, but we know yeast is in the lung and oceans of it, and this works. So, 2 hours of this, and then just I'll turn the fan off, of course, and then have some more tablets. Well, this is all I do. It's all I've been doing now for the past 2 or 3 years, is just treat myself every day like this, more research. But this last 10 months with the cryotherapy medical room, as I call it, first at my friend's fruit shops, which was a bit restrictive, of course, but now that I've had this for the last 6 months, 5 months at home, it's $11,000 unit. Had to get it shipped down from Sydney. I ran out of money before my dear sister passed on, and she had a small trust fund which I received some money from that because the medical profession, the specialist, had sent me broke. $200,000 in savings straight down the toilet thanks to them. But my dear sister, who moved on to a much more beautiful world in the heavenly nirvana world, some of her funds came to me, and I've got enough for about another year. So it helped pay for this, and all those funds of course came from our parents. So I always thank my father Jim for working so hard, and my mother Lorraine. Well, that's it. That's the actual process of killing a deadly, neurotoxic, life-threatening at least yeast, systemic fungal infection, certainly in the lungs, and it's in the rest of the body. The long video will show you this. Right, so we'll just come back over here now. And there we are. And I'll just have to bring the camera back over, of course. Bit hard to talk to you facing the wrong direction. Okay. Well, that's about it. I won't have any more on this video. I will be attaching the longer one, and the longer one has an enormous, a much greater selection of the microscopy images, which I have now, and that's why the pathology labs, certainly one threatened one GP, I know that for a fact, the CEO. The other GP was too frightened to tell me who threatened him, because they were giving me too many samples, which then built up a massive case against the pathology labs in particular, that they are negligent, they are incompetent, and then I found out they even refused to report yeast in my lung, even though the GPs asked them to do so. So that's a government matter, and I will be contacting the Australian government about this. The pathology labs need to be investigated, and the specialists in Melbourne regarding fungi and yeast, they really need to go to India, China, United States or Europe to learn more, because the population here is too small and they don't really know a broad knowledge. They've only got a limited knowledge. But I'm happy to share this with them. This can save lives. But what chance do you think I've got of these people in Australia, these so-called specialists, of taking any notice of this after abandoning me? 3 said go see a psychiatrist, the easy out clause, and I was just mocked and ridiculed. And they threw all those reports, which I showed earlier in the video, in the rubbish bin, including a letter from my GP who's known me for 40 years, letters from professor at a university, another GP, all this evidence I got, all this support I got from others who cared about me. The specialist couldn't care less. It's really a shocking revelation to me in Australia that the medical profession has degenerated into a really sick culture. My 2 GPs told me they were frightened to talk to the specialist about my case after they misdiagnosed me, because they were frightened they would be sued by the specialist for implying the specialist is negligent. And the same thing was told to me about the pathology lab reports. They will never question the report because the pathology lab might sue them for inferring that they are negligent. I had no idea this sort of evil corruption was in the medical system, in the children, the people who are there to help you. Instead of working together, they work against each other. It's really shocking. That's the cryotherapy, the main so that's another video. That's for the government to step in. This video is about saving lives, and I offer it freely to the world, of course. That's the, you just jcinfocus@gmail.com. If you wish to email me and contact me about this, I will be contacting various mycologists around the world and various universities or hospitals to try to direct them to have a look at this. It's completely verifiable. It's a legitimate case. It's an actual case, and it is a classic case study. This is a really fantastic case study. The patient is ridiculed, mocked and laughed at. The pathology labs are incompetent, and he's left to die. Then he goes and does all this research himself. He has about 10,000 images of the infection, lots of other reports, and yet he's still left to die, untreated. It's a fantastic case study. It shows you all the faults, both in the medical system here, which has a sick culture. That's the first problem. The pathology labs here that are incompetent, negligent, and refuse to do what they're asked by the doctor. That's just disgraceful. The GPs are treated like dirt by the specialists. They'll never ring my GP because they're just a GP. I'm a specialist. I'm a special person. I don't have to do that. So this is a sick culture. My GPs are frightened to talk to them because they could get sued. Now that is a serious degeneration. Massive. In Australia. I'd never realised it, and I can assure you 99.9% of Australians don't know that's going on. But the doctors all do. I pray that some doctor will see this in Australia and speak out, get on the radio, a specialist even, that'll be rare, but a doctor, get on the radio and speak out about this. I'll be contacting the government and trying to get some movement on this. It's very hard to change a sick culture like that. Okay then, cryotherapy can destroy a serious neurotoxic fungal infection, killing a person, particularly when it's in the lungs. But if you have a look at my microscopy work on the long video, you'll see it's a systemic infection right through the body. Biopsies were sent to labs and they reported no mycology. You will be shocked when you see my microscopy work. My GP knows my work is superior to the labs here in Melbourne, but he will never, ever, ever question the labs. I had no idea that was going on. Boy, I thought doctors were supposed to help you. Instead, they have vacuum cleaners in their office. I said, oh, what's that for? Oh, just give us your wallet. Oh, I see, right. You're a vacuum cleaner person. You vacuum my wallet. I forgive them all for leaving me to die in agony, and I'm here for any of them in Melbourne if they wish to turn over a new leaf, you might say, swallow their pride and their ego, come down from their ivory tower long enough to stand on the ground. And this could be a brilliant study case, even for universities. As I say, I deal with 6 universities, 6 people at 4 different universities. This would be a great PhD student project, guided by people at a university who were more caring for me than all the specialists. One specialist, Piers Canty at the Epworth Hospital in Melbourne, I'll mention him again, because he treated me with total respect. I only had a few microscopy images when I saw him. Even I wasn't sure what I was looking at then. They were only the early ones. But he didn't ridicule me. He didn't say, go and see a psychiatrist, you shouldn't do that, which is what another specialist told me to do, without even investigating. He said, I'm amazed you're doing all that. You're really interested in your illness. I said, oh, I've had it for some years now and it's getting worse. I'm very interested, and I've got a horticultural background. Now, he fully supported me, and he was fully amazed that I was going to that length myself to try to understand it. He immediately got me in, and then we were let down by the Melbourne pathology report. No mycology in his lungs. Have a look at my long video and see the oceans of yeast in my lung and other things, and you'll understand what the problem is. So this is a very, very vital message I'm sending out to the world on YouTube, which can save lives. If you find it, please share it. Please set up clinics and testing this on patients, of course, monitoring them. Have a nurse in with them in the cryotherapy chamber, I call it, the medical room. You can put windows in the door. You can have glass doors, glass windows, so people don't feel claustrophobic. Put music in if you want, if the speakers don't freeze up. But there's no doubt this is helping to prevent me dying. It's just a fact. But now I need to increase it because, unfortunately, it is now like meningitis. But I'm ready now to increase it much more. I do hope and pray that somebody takes a serious notice of this, and I really hope, of course, it's used, and then finally an official person in the official system can see it working in a case study, and then it becomes legitimate. And then the rest of the club can join in and save lives with a very non-toxic treatment that the yeast cannot overcome. All good things in this world come out of love and care for others. All evil things come out of only caring for yourself and dominating others. So, let's love. Bye for now.